Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Mob Psycho 100 OVO, the one that takes place in between season 2 and 3. A great OVO, just great little fun little adventure I thought was kind of neat. Obviously, they are going to like this hot spring, and obviously Serizawa's going, so it's Mob and Risu got invited. We later on find out Teru got invited because I guess like just off like out of sight, like, you know, like in between, because it was like 2 days prior they got the job. Because for a second I was wondering, I was like, is this Serizawa's first job with the team? But it was like, no, like there was a customer that came in just as the episode was ending with the season 2 finale. So there's probably been a few jobs in between, but he's still early days in him working with the team. So poor guy couldn't even get any sleep because he was so nervous, which Mom was like, oh my God, I was the exact same way anytime there was any school trip situation. Just constantly, like, I do love that Serizawa is just basically an older version of Mob. And so it ends up being this situation. And I love he has these notes about like, right, you wait 15 seconds to see what the boss is doing. You don't really like undermine him in any shape or form. He's got like this list of rules. And I was like, who wrote these for you? But basically they're notes he took from a book that he read about kind of like professionalism when it comes to working at a job or whatever. So he's trying not to undermine Regan the entire episode. I think it's just so beautiful considering, like, right, Regan took this job because, like, this is all about this very famous, like, hot spring place. And they have been around for, like, over a century or whatever. Been around a very long time. But the problem is, recently, there's been, like, a portal that, like, customers have complained about entering a parallel world. And when they did, now it's like their business is getting like torn apart review wise. So Regan's initially being like, oh yeah, this lady is just making an excuse to try and cover for the fact that her business is coming out of falling out of popularity. And like in traditional Regan fashion, it's not until something presents itself that he is interested in that he's like, ooh, I'm going to take this job now. Because he's like, yeah, we could go all the way there, but then we have to pay for it and had to find a place. But it's like, oh no, we'll pay for your expenses and everything. Plus on top of that, pay you for the actual job. He's like, cool. How many people can I bring along? She's like, what? He's like, I'm sorry. We'll take the case. So taking advantage of it, bringing like a total of like, what, 4 other people with him, you know, so that's kind of, you know, but it's like, I guess, get your money's worth. Well, it seems like Teru kind of, well, I guess Teru's travel could have gotten covered on its own, because I was about to say, like, he didn't travel with them, but he probably took another means to get there, and that travel expense is also being covered, but whatever the case may be. I was actually so interested with, like, the moment the train situation happened, the moment they were going towards the tunnel, I was like, is this not going to deal with the hot spring itself? Are they just going to be on the train the entire time? And lo and behold, it turns out that Serizawa and Regan were stuck on the train. And I thought it was so interesting because I was like, the entire time Regan's like moving around the train, I was like, he hasn't run into Mob or Risu. I was like, and then we cut back to them sleeping on the train, and Regan and, Risu and Mob are perfectly fine and are awake. I was like, oh, only these two are asleep. It's like because they actually fell asleep on the train, because like Risu and Mob were in the bathroom at the time. Plus their kids are a little more energetic. I mean, plus Serizawa was like super worn out because he didn't go to sleep the night before because he was too like, you know, nervous about everything. So I wonder, I was about to say like, oh, well, I guess it works in the end because like we see later on he can go there, because I was about to say like, I guess he was chilling on the roof, but we know that Dimple, like, but he was kind of resting on the roof of the train. But I wonder, did it not affect him because he's a ghost? But like, he shows up in like that parallel world later on. So I'm like, he must have traveled there with everyone else. But it's like, does he naturally get pulled in there if he goes to sleep? I mean, do spirits even really sleep? He was chilling and relaxing on the ceiling. I mean, not on the roof of the train, but I'm like, I don't know if he actually goes to sleep. Do spirits actually sleep? I don't think they do, right? The show actually doesn't give you an answer to that, which is something interesting to think about. It's like, I don't think we've ever seen a spirit sleep, but it's just something just interesting to think about. Like I said, he's there in that parallel world later on, so I don't know. Got there somehow. But I thought on some level it was a little poetic in some cosmic way that Regan, because like once again he took this job for selfish reasons, and it's like once again Regan can be a dick and a douchebag and manipulative, but he's not like a bad guy per se. But it's still kind of like cosmic. I thought like the moment like Mob and Ritsu were there and Taruki was there, and then eventually when Serizawa left, I was like, oh my god, are they going to have the entire vacation there, and Regan's going to be the only one who doesn't get to take advantage of it? For the most part, I mean, he gets to take the benefits of it, some of it later on. But I thought that was so interesting. I almost thought he was not going to be able to have it. It's like, yeah, by the time the job's over and he's free and he's back, they'd be leaving. It's like they leave like the next day, but still, like he got to enjoy things to some extent. But he spent the entire time stressed out, so it's not like he got to, So you do like once again, you feel bad for Regan on one part, but at the same time you're also like it is his own fault because he wants to act like he's got everything in control, even though like he's a fraud. I don't know why he's so prideful that he can never admit like, oh, I need help figuring this out, because Serizawa's trying to be respectful and it's like, oh, I don't want to step on your investigation, so I'm gonna let you do your thing, even though I'm the one that's like, yo, this train is looped and stuff like that. And Regan's like, why are you so calm? He's like, well, I'm a shut-in. I spent the past 20 years being a shut-in, and so like being stuck in a small space isn't that crazy to me. It's actually, kind of comforting. So it's like, and Regan tried to spin it, be like, oh, good, because the last thing I would want to have to deal with is you like panicking and stuff like that, even though he's the one that's freaking out, because it's like, well, Mob and Risu aren't here. Your backups. You don't even have Dimple here to ask questions about the situation. So like I said, you kind of feel bad for him on some level, but at the same time, it is the thing of he's the one that took this job for selfish reasons. It's not like he had the most selfless of reasons for taking the job, but it's like, hey, everyone else got to benefit from it. But like I said, it's just everyone else got to enjoy it more, got to enjoy their job more, the more positive sides of the job than he did. Because I love when Serizawa just crosses and goes through the door and he's like, I guess me and Regan are asleep. And then he just goes chills with the others. And he's not saying anything because he's like, no, I've got to let Master have his opportunity. So by the time Serizawa does come back and he's talking about the outside world, he's like, oh, I'm going to go take a bath. Regan's thinking like, oh my God, like Serizawa's finally lost it. And it's like, no, home dude is actually leaving and going. Him coming back the first time, I was like, that's hilarious. He left and Regan didn't even realize he had left and come back. I just thought that was so funny. But yeah, home dude started having a breakdown. I mean, time works differently there. So like, even though it's like, hey, I would, because like, we've seen something dark like this before. It's a situation with Mogami and Mob from last season where Mogami had Mob trapped in that alternate reality for like, he's like, yeah, you've been living this for like 6 months. So like Regan's kind of like losing it and spiraling. He eventually ran out of food. It's just like, oh, you poor bastard. He wasn't sure if it was going to help or not, but he actually tries to jump out the train. But I thought that was beautifully done. I was like, yeah, he goes out of the train and immediately lands back inside the train. It's like, yeah, you can't even get off the train. I was like, that probably would be an issue, because I'm like, if you get off the train, like, would the others even be able to get back to you? But it's like, no, you can't leave the train. So I was like, I mean, that sucks, but it was also like the good, because it's like, cool, like you're not trapped out here in this world by yourself. So on the outside, like I said, everyone's kind of enjoying everything. I love the Kabibara situation that kind of comes up on the TV. I'm like, I didn't catch all of it, but it just seemed like random. I wonder if that's because like, doesn't that tie into the whole thing that they were chasing? Maybe it wasn't a Kabibara. I thought that I was thinking for a second it tied into like that little snippet at the end of season 1, that thing they were hunting, but it wasn't a Kabibara. It was something else, wasn't it? I don't remember now. It's been a while. So I thought there was some correlation there, but I love that just happening in the background. Maybe there was really pertinent information, or maybe that's going to pull over into like season 3. Because like, I mean, there wasn't a lot from the OVA that, I mean, the bar that Regan went to and the fact is he wrote the book are canonical to at least to the anime. I don't know if that happened in the manga too or not, but probably not. That's probably just canonical to the anime. But I mean, we saw that the book exists, so like everything that happened in the OVA did in fact happen, and because it, in that continuity of the anime. But either way, I was curious that like, not unless that's something that pops up in season 3. That's them kind of setting the stage for that. I don't know. But we learned more about, was it Ibogami is the name of like the hot spring and stuff like that, because it turns out it was a god from years and years ago who that portal that enters a parallel world. Ibogami ended up sealing that hole, and now it's worshipped, and that's why like everything on the menu here is got Ebo in it or something like that. So like I said, our boy Regan is just cracking and falling into a deep, deep depression, and he's like scrawling stuff on the floor, being like, "Yo, Regan was here," and kind of his like final message. I mean, hell, he's been there long enough that he's getting like fuzz on his face. But then like Serizawa shows up, and he's like, "Oh my God, you came back! I thought you were gone." It's like he was alone for a while, and he's like, "Wait, where'd you get those clothes from? Where'd you get that food from?" He's like, "Oh yeah, from the inn." He's like, "Whoa, whoa, you went there?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You could leave and you didn't say anything?" He's like, "I thought I didn't want to like take this away from you. I didn't want to like, I read this book saying like this and that." And he's like, "Don't get pissed at the newbie. Don't get pissed at him." But it's like, it is sad that once again, beautifully poetic, they once again being the normal person, being the con artist that you are, you once again, you were your own undoing in this situation. But nevertheless, he's like, right, we still got to figure out the heart of what's causing this whole situation. So it's like, right, bring mob. And so everyone comes, and then it's like, okay, you guys destroy this situation. And then like Serizawa was like, "No, I thought you said you wanted to investigate." He's like, "Screw it, we're moving past that. I can't figure it out, so we're just going to destroy it." But then it turns out like, oh, the cause of all of this is the mountain. But even I was like, well, how are you going to get to the mountain? Like, you can't leave the train. So it's like, oh, well, you don't have to leave the train. You just pick the train up with your psychic powers and move it over there. It's like, okay, that's a way around the infinite loop you're stuck in, and an inability to actually leave the train itself. But the moment they go over there, they find the Ibogami, like the giant ball. It's like, right, it was sealing away the portal or whatever, but there was some like this stuff that was all around it. And I love that Regan doing his Regan thing, being like, "Oh, good on you guys for figuring out." Serious, I was like, "No, I thought you said." He was like, "No, I was testing you and you passed." Lo and behold, they end up having to fight the thing and end up ultimately destroying it. But I love that like Dimple tasted it, and he was like, "Why does this taste salty but like familiar?" By the time they all, and when they, now that they've dealt with this, the Ibogami is now sealing the hole again, and then they come back to reality, and Dimple ends up flying into the lady who owns the inn. It flies up her nose, and it turns out she was sick. Apparently, because they worship Ibogami so much, that family secretly, unbeknownst to them, started developing psychic powers, and they have been secretly helping fuel keeping that portal closed. But the moment she got sick, it weakened her powers, and in turn, like, the seal Ibogami had was weakening too. So it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, because I was, because like when she initially showed up with her face covered saying there was a code going on, I was like, is there going to be something more to that? But it's like, no, it was heavily plot relevant. So whole situation's resolved. But I love that by the time, like, Regan's finally awake, but it's like, huh, I'm full of energy. Let's have a pillow fight. But everyone else is like, no, we're tired and stuff like that. He was like, no, I was just joking. But Dimple's like, then why'd you pull up your sleeves? It's like, but sadly, he couldn't go to sleep. It's like, because he spent the entire day, like, sleeping. So, once again, everyone's able to just get back and enjoy. Like I said, he only had that night. He got to enjoy some of the food. He got to enjoy the baths, but he didn't get to enjoy it as much as the others did. So, and I love that the next day you could see, like, the wrinkles under his eyes, because he's like, the circles under his eye, because he stayed up all night, couldn't get to sleep. So, and I love that he left her. It's like, oh yeah, the next time you get sick here, it's some like store-bought medicine, but he's trying to, like, he puts like a cover on it, being like, oh yeah, these are like psychic pills infused with my psychic abilities or whatever. He's like, use these next time you get sick or something, so this situation never happens again. So it's like, well, it seems like it's all resolved. I was wondering if it was going to have like a dark turn to it, because of because we went back to her and she was going to visit her mom. I was like, oh, when she's talking to her mom, I was like, was there something sinister here? Is the mom going to be evil or something? But it's like, no. It turns out, it's like, oh, did you get over your cold? She's like, yeah, I did. And it's like, well, I don't have to worry about getting sick. Her mom's like, Ibogami will protect me. And then we see that she gets sick. It's like, oh, did she pass it on to me? And I love the parallels of just while the mother is getting sick, is just when our crew is going through the tunnel, and Mob and the others are playing cards with Serizawa, and then Mob ends up pulling a Joker card. Gave me very much a I mean, it's not even a spoiler. It, kind of is, but kind of isn't. It's out of context. It doesn't mean anything, but it gave me Alice in Borderland vibes because that's literally the final shot. I don't know if the manga ends exactly that way. I think it does, but like definitely the live action does. Uh, it ends on a Joker card, so I was like, oh, that's beautiful. So it's like, well, and the only person who would be affected. Granted, we saw like his eyes were somewhat open, so as long as he didn't fall asleep, it'd be fine. But anyone else that's on their way there, because it's like you have to fall asleep inside the tunnel for that to happen. Wow, one of the matrons at that place is sick. It's just, I just crazy wild situation. But aside from all that, something else that was really pertinent and I thought was kind of beautiful is Regan ends up giving Mob a business card, which I even love Risu being like, hey, yo, like, bro, Nissan, like, do not actually use those with people. But it is kind of cool. Like, Mob has, like, these little, like, a business card of his own with his name and everything. But, like, Mob's like, I am only working there temporarily. So is it kind of right? He's like, no, go ahead. And Sarazawa finally has one. And I love the beautiful, like, no, you know what? Because a lesson that Regan taught him was like, okay, it's good to, follow like the books and be willing to listen to someone, but sometimes you have to think for yourself, which is something Mob it took like going through all of season 1 and partway into season 2 for Mob to kind of start doing that. And once again, the parallels between them. So, but yeah, he ended up crumpling up the notes. It's like, no, I'm going to listen to myself from now. I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I thought that was kind of nice. It's like, right, you're not a slave anymore. You can think for yourself and that's okay. So another little thing I thought was interesting in the episode too was Teru talks to Mob like, oh, is there someone that you like at school? And Mob got very nervous. And he's like, oh, actually, there's a girl that showed up that went to Salt Middle School. And then Risu tried to shut that down because Risu doesn't have the context. He still believes like, oh, Tsubomi is into someone and stuff like that, not knowing that was all bullshit just for her to be able to see whether Regan was the real deal or not. So he's just kind of like, right, the last thing I want my brother to know is like Tsubomi actually likes someone else. So kind of shut that down and moved over to like, oh, Sarazawa, is there someone you like? He's like, well, the only woman I've interacted with over 20 years was my mom. And he's like, ooh, sorry I asked you for that, putting you on the spot, And even love, I think it was Dimple, like, why are you asking a full-grown man about, like, dating advice or, like, when it comes to, like, love and relationships or something like that. So, there was also another bit I completely forgot to talk about in this episode, too, and that was the whole Taruki thing. They had this whole thing where, like, Mob and Risu were, like, with Taruki, like, he's scrubbing his hair and stuff, and I think even Dimple was there, and they're like, what about the top of his head? It's like, I was like, what does that mean? Like, is he, like, how... I mean, ever since that, like, giant stuff he had, like, his hair being that giant thing and it was fake and stuff, and the moment that got cut down, he's kept his hair short, but it has grown out more over the course of this season. But I'm like, was that implying, like, the top of his hair is, like, more of a... I mean, it probably still is the toupee. So, and every time throughout the episode, his hair, the top of his head keeps getting covered. So it's like, I guess it's kind of like a thing of... not trying to cast any stones. My hair is pretty much the same way. I was like, could it be just it's growing out on the sides, but it's just still a bald patch in the middle? Like maybe that slice like killed all the hair follicles. But I'm like, is it like a toupee right there? I mean, we know it's still like the giant thing he was wearing. He never got the giant hair again. So I guess like it just... I don't know. It just seemed like this interesting little bit they went back to twice. And I'm like, is that going to be something that carries over into season 3? So I don't know. I'm curious to see what that ends up being. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to also include that in this conversation. I just think that's so interesting. Just, once again, just another fun little OVO, not OVO, Jesus, sorry, OVA situation. So very, very excited to jump into season 3 and see where ultimately all this ends up taking us. Ultimately seeing where the series ultimately comes to an end. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.